Hey guys, Taki here. This is going to be my second video covering the GPD Win 4 device that I've been testing for the last few days. So far, I've been really enjoying this device from a PC gaming standpoint, but I wanted to delve into how it holds up as an emulation handheld. Today's video is predominantly going to be about that, but I did want to add a bunch of other things that were brought up by viewers in the comment section of my last video. I also want to do a big thank you to everyone that subscribed from my last video. These videos take a lot of time to put together, and the support means a lot. Also, a quick reminder that there is an unpublished double XP week going on right now on YouTube, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can gain some easy levels. In all seriousness, I mentioned that this device can have a 40 Hz refresh rate in my last video, and this is something that's not common outside of the Steam Deck, so I wanted to quickly show what it's like with two examples. While I'm here, I can also answer the question of whether or not it is easy to game on this device when it's open. Due to the fact that we have the useful optical mouse here in the corner, I can usually get by with the majority of things that I need while I'm in a game, but for other games that need a keyboard for typing commands or chatting, it is very easy to play with this thing fully open all the time. Sometimes I will even leave this open so I can have easy access to window shortcuts. I also had a question about the overlay that I used in my last video. You can make an overlay like this or however else you want with 3 applications. The overlay itself comes from RTSS, and you will need to use that with MSI Afterburner and Hardware Info to populate the data. RTSS has an overlay editor in the setup menu, and you can make your own layout with the sensor data that you want to pull. I have one for 1080p games and one for 720p ones. Some of these are device specific, but I can do a general guide on this if people are interested. Anyway, here we are in Spider-Man Remastered, and I need to lower the quality to low so we have a bit more headroom for this example. After doing that, I will float in the 40s to low 50s on this rooftop. We are at 22 watt TDP right now with a charge drain of around 37 watts, and you'll notice that our FPS is all over the place. In this case, we could change our display refresh rate and use VSync to stabilize this a bit and hopefully use less power. Doing that is pretty easy. We just need to go into advanced display settings and change the refresh rate to 40 Hz. Just remember that this can make some emulators run slower than normal, so you will need to swap back in those situations. Back to our rooftop scene again, we are now locked at a max of 40 FPS. Our TDP dropped to 19 watts for this, and our charge drain is a bit lower at around 31 watts. You will also notice that our FPS and our frame time are much more stable than they were before. Depending on the kind of game that you're playing, frame stability can be just as important as high FPS. In another example, we have a game that can run at 60 FPS with a TDP of 28 watts and a charge drain of over 45. Capping our FPS to 40 should result in a much bigger improvement in this game. After doing so, our TDP is able to drop to 17 watts, and our charge drain goes from 45 watts down to around 28 watts. I don't tend to use 40 Hz refresh rates even on the deck, but it is a cool thing to mess around with on this device if you like to min-max your hardware. Another person wanted me to do a video on SteamOS running on this device, since GPD claimed to have official support for SteamOS. To be honest with you, I don't really want to do a separate video just on this because Hollow ISO can run on almost anything now, and those kind of videos always seem pointless and low effort, but I can quickly go over what works and what doesn't work here. This is a fresh install of Hollow ISO running on an external hard drive. Our optical mouse on the side fully works, and so do all of our controls. If we switch the device into mouse mode, that also works. Even holding down the R2 trigger will cause the mouse speed to speed up, which is pretty cool. Our menu button on the bottom right hand corner acts as the Steam button, and we can use it for all of the normal combos like opening up the on-screen keyboard. When you are in a game, none of the performance options outside of the FPS cap will do anything without installing separate software, so just be aware. I haven't installed those apps since this is just looking at the out-of-the-box experience. To be honest, you are much better with Windows on this device unless you absolutely have to have SteamOS or Linux distro running on this thing. The Steam Deck is still the best device to run SteamOS on by far. That doesn't mean that we have to lose everything. This is back over to Windows now with the new Big Picture UI giving us almost the same experience. If you saw my big video on Steam Deck emulation, then this should look familiar to you. I've gone ahead and used the Steam ROM Manager app to add some of the games from this video to this UI with their artwork. If we go into Super Mario 64 and launch it, it should automatically load into my last save state. We can do the same thing for GameCube games, but I need to quickly make it full screen and load up a save state using the keyboard shortcut because I haven't mapped a hotkey. This is just to show that you can make this more of a gaming console if that's important to you, depending on how you want to set it up. Because I've already used most of my internal storage for the games for my last video, I'm going to use the SD card slot with a 256GB card to hold the games that I will use for this video. Everything that you're about to see in this video is running from that card, so if you're worried about any performance issues buying a cheaper Win 4 option with less included storage, this video should give you a good idea of what you can expect. I usually do these videos from the least demanding systems to the most, but we will deviate from that a bit by grouping all of the RA systems together. Unless stated otherwise, I have not manually changed the TDP of this device up or down. In this first system, we have Super Nintendo running on the BSNES core. There are less demanding options that we could use if we wanted to increase our battery life, but this core allows us to play some of these games in widescreen. We can do the same with Sega Genesis, but this core only uses 6-watt TDP to do so. It also has a better selection of games that can work well in widescreen. GBA also runs well on this at the same 6-watt TDP using the MGBA core. Next up, we have Dreamcast with the Flycast core. I have the rendering resolution set to 1440p, and we are using widescreen hacks to render the games in 16:9.
Hop in.
You're cool. Take me to the cable car up on the
Okay,
hill.
better hang on.
Our last RA system is N64 with the Mupen 64 Plus core. Just like Dreamcast, these games are also taking advantage of core options to render the games in 16:9.
Get a bonus.
Now we're on to standalone emulators, and I'm going to group two handheld systems in this video before moving on. Here is PSP.
We control the command post.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, being an Otzel might be useful after all.
For 3DS, I have one of the back buttons mapped to swapping the screen, and I'm using the optical mouse to select stuff on the bottom 3DS screen. For games that you need to touch this screen, I think this is a cool use case. Please excuse the OSD in this section as it's a little jank with this emulator.
Listen. I'm here.
Now we're moving on to consoles, and our first one is PS1 with the DuckStation emulator. I have these games upscaled to 5x native for 1080p, and I am using widescreen hacks. Since they use the same emulator, I'm going to group GameCube and Wii together. I'm using the latest official build of Dolphin for this, and I have the rendering resolution set to 3x native.
Nice hits. A huge amount of damage. It's down. Take this, Thunderbolt! Why? Our time is come. You've got a nerve. The time is now.
Our next system is PS2 with the PCSX2 emulator. These games are run with widescreen hacks, and I have the rendering resolution set to 3x native.
Request priority medevac on my location.
Copy that. You got a
Come on!
Freaks. Move.
Gadgetron's Omni-Link 2000 includes a new compass for the future. To activate it, use the auto regulator, and then press the square button. You just picked up nanotech.
Gate 86. Over.
I've got a visual.
The ball has stopped rolling. We've got an obstruction.
I'm on it.
Up from here we have Xbox. I wanted to be sure to include a new title that doesn't run that well on this hardware so you can see where the limits are.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Mycosaurus Rex! Ha! Oh yeah!
For all of you fans of the Red Dead Redemption series, this is going to be an interesting one. Here we have the Xenia emulator running this game, and as you can see, it's a little slow at 18 watt TDP. Our GPU is sleeping, so I increased the TDP to 28 watts without much benefit. I then locked the GPU to 1.5 gigahertz, and that seems to have made the performance a bit better. This is the first time that I've ever filmed this game, but it's not that bad. Other Xbox 360 games that I usually film run very well on this hardware at lower TDP.
You ain't very talkative, are you?
Nope.
I'm just chewing the dog, mister. It's how I am.
From Xbox 360, we move on to Wii U emulation with the CMU emulator. I made sure to include some new titles here, and this thing held up very well.
Really?
Now get in close.
PS3 is more demanding than Wii U, and some of these titles from this system can really tax the 6800U. That being said, we are still getting good performance with these titles. Switch is the last emulator with the Yuzu emulator, and it's the only other time in this video that I needed to manually adjust the TDP to get better performance. I started with Super Mario Odyssey and the FPS was pretty bad at 18 watt TDP. I went up a bit higher than I needed to, but locking the GPU frequency was enough to improve performance. The rest of the Switch titles were left at default TDP levels. You know we have to include Vita emulation in this video, right? Here's Vita 3K running on the GPD Win 4. This is the first time that I've filmed this emulator in any showcase that I've done.
Dante.
I got a report that shots were fired by the river.
It was nothing.
I'm telling you, it was Drake. You tell me.
I'll see you in hell.
As you can see, this device is very good when it comes to emulation. It can take advantage of a lot of systems that are currently supported on Windows, and the performance is generally good with the 6800U processor. I am planning to do another video on this device as my full review, so make sure to stay tuned so you don't miss it. Happy gaming, everyone.